The data people are going to get me for this, but there is a data point out there that says that businesses with well-designed dashboards are 3 times more likely to achieve their goals. Today on Data Fuel, we're going to talk a little bit about how to build dashboards that give it. Here's the catch though. Dashboards, they're not just about throwing metrics on a screen. We're talking about aligning strategy, driving behavior, and then delivering value, delivering results. So we're going to dive into how SMBs can build more effective dashboards to fuel success. So what is the role of metrics in dashboard design? What we're thinking about here is that the fact that not every metric is a KPI, but every KPI is a metric. So what does that exactly mean relative to what you're displaying from a dashboarding perspective at the various levels in your organization? When we start to think about selecting metrics, we need to start with the organizational strategy. What are the goals of the organization? What do you have set out for the year, the quarter, the month, the week? Generally, you're going to want to start at KPIs at that executive level and then decompose them into departmental and individual contributor metrics. So if you think about like an EOS framework, you've got the rocks that everybody has on a quarterly basis. And those are then distilled down in the L10 as to what is being accomplished on a weekly basis. What are the metrics that are being tracked? What's the scoreboard that you're tracking that are working toward those rocks? So when you decompose the rocks to the individual and departmental level and or individual contributor level, you need to understand how they align with that broader picture. So if we're starting with an executive KPI or an executive rock to increase annual revenue by 20%, there could be a sales team metric that supports that KPI that says, hey, we need to achieve 10% growth in qualified leads in order to hit this metric. What that may mean at the individual contributor level for the sales team is that the individual may need to convert 5% of leads into customers per quarter. So if you have a 10% growth in qualified lead and a 5% conversion rate into customers per quarter, those metrics are then conducive to supporting that executive KPI of increasing annual revenue by 20%. Now, we need to focus on metrics that matter, but also balance monetary, so revenue, with non-monetary, like customer success. So marrying those two things together is really important when evaluating the KPI that you're looking to achieve relative to the metrics that support that. And all of these go into the dashboarding side of things. But first, we want to think about how metrics and KPIs align with one another before we start putting them in a dashboard for other folks to look at. When we think about structuring dashboards for that team alignment, for ensuring that individual contributors, managers, and executives are all moving the same direction, we're really trying to create a single pane of glass for the organization. So your executive dashboards have high-level KPIs that are really tracking the organizational performance. Then we go one level deeper, and we've got the departmental dashboards that have those metrics that align with the departmental goals and contribute to the executive level KPIs or rocks. So you can see how you've got the executive, you've got the sales team, and then we're moving down to the individual contributor metric. So the actionable metrics that reflect daily performance. And this could be that conversion rate of leads into customers or number of qualified customers, qualified leads on a periodic basis. If we're thinking about this through the lens of like how all of these roll up to one another, you should have consistency from the metrics that you have at the individual contributor level all the way up to the executive dashboards. So if you have an organized solution of how to capture that data, these dashboards should all be coming from the same location that the data is coming from. So if we think about like a marketing executive who's tracking cost per acquisition and campaign ROI on a dashboard, the individual contributor may be monitoring what are the open rates via email and how many leads were generated from our email campaign. Maybe we A/B tested that and we've got varying results there. So that could be almost a sub-metric of the performance of open rates that helps better inform the campaign ROI that the marketing executive is talking about. Here's something we want to avoid in this process though. We want to avoid the one dashboard per person mindset. We don't want to have a whole slew of dashboards that everybody's looking at individually, but rather we need to focus more on role-based views with shared data governance and then certified metrics that all roll up to that executive level. So you can look at this departmentally. You can have some degree of individual contributor metrics, but that may not necessarily relate to a single dashboard for that individual, but rather a cohort of individuals within a department. We got to think about the right tools and reducing the dashboard sprawl that can happen, because a lot of folks are so accustomed to living in the tools that they operate in every day. Maybe that's Salesforce, HubSpot, or other tools that do have a degree of dashboarding capabilities. However, these dashboards really should be centralized, certified, and governed at the executive level, so we reduce the confusion and the sprawl that different teams are operating in their unique platforms on. When you have this centralized and everybody's reading from the same songbook and they've got the same tool that they're measuring performance based on, there is immediate alignment amongst those teams. Some of the tools that I think are really helpful, if you're a Google shop, look at Looker. Looker is one of the tools that comes native to Google. There's some minor degree of hosting costs that come with that. However, it is a very powerful tool to be able to take the data that you have, plug it into that tool, and create role-based or department-based access to dashboards that the whole company is looking at. If you're a Microsoft shop, Power BI is included in your subscription. That would be the go-to tool that we would recommend. Now, of course, there are other tools like Tableau that are widely adopted, that are fantastic tools that allow for scalability, that allow for customization, and can connect to really any other platform. You do want to make sure that there is the web and mobile access as well. So access to these dashboards is going to play a critical role based on the individual's day-to-day work and how they want to access the data. So when you're thinking about these things, you want to avoid the Excel and back the napkin math trap, and train teams to rely on dashboards as that source of truth, because it's really easy for an individual contributor to go in, take a look at some HubSpot, say, hey, I closed these deals and this is what my commission should be. And they're trying to calculate out what to expect. When in reality, there may be other factors at play that go into that back of the napkin calculation that is not being considered by that individual. And so if they're trained to look at the dashboard that everybody is looking at, they will start to develop reliance on that and work towards the same metrics that everybody else is aligned on. So we worked with the SaaS company to help replace, there are 15 ad hoc spreadsheets across their sales organization, one for each salesperson. And it was a really clunky way to update how sales were being navigated, how commission structure was being calculated, and instead built them a custom and unified Looker dashboard. And so what this did was that it reduced errors and improved clarity, and then it increased adoption of understanding how to interface with the data and commission that was coming to that individual within a single platform. And the data was being updated automatically. So there's no more of the exporting, copying, pasting, reformatting, recalculating, getting approved. It was all in one spot. So it helped the individual contributor layer just as much as it did the management layer to approve and then ultimately pay the commissions. One thing you really want to do here is just make sure that it's simple. We want to focus on usability here. We want to focus on understandability of the dashboard that's being created. And so, like I mentioned, mobile friendly, on the go insights, creating an environment that your team can really adapt to quickly will be very important. When we talk about that adaptability or adoption of dashboarding and taking a new approach on this, we're looking to drive behavior. We're looking to drive outcomes. And myself, as a classically trained CPA accountant, I'm accustomed to looking at Excel. I'm accustomed to looking at financial statements. And that's generally how I would be more inclined to digest information, to digest connection points between data. And so when I get into an environment of Power BI or of Looker, at first, it's a little bit of a mind trick to try to understand, okay, this is a different way of digesting data than I was before. My brain needs to shift. There may be some degree of change management that needs to occur in order to train your team on how to understand and interpret the metrics that they're seeing. And it's not only the interpretation of the metrics, it's then the action that takes place based on the metrics. So as much as you can, let's try to embed dashboarding into your day-to-day workflows. Use them in team meetings. Use them in decision-making process. And to the extent that you can demonstrate how you're utilizing these on a day-to-day basis, it will help the team rethink how they're interacting with the information they need to be successful and go to a dashboard product first if it is indeed providing them the metrics they need to be effective. Again, it goes back to the raw data. It goes back to how it's articulated. It goes back to the simplicity of it. So it needs to be really easy to use, but it can be a really powerful tool. One of the things here to consider is that we need to implement regular feedback loops to ensure that the dashboards are user-friendly, to ensure that they are driving action. And so gathering feedback from the team to say, hey, does this dashboard include the things that you need to be successful? Is there anything else that we're not considering that we should be to incorporate into this dashboard to help you make better decisions? And that could be information that's coming from another department that needs to be incorporated. So we use the example of customer success relative to conversion rates. There could be a piece there that could really help the sales team understand the efficacy of their sales rhythms. One of the things we see a lot is that a lot of dashboards are just overloaded with too many metrics. So you need to stick to the most impactful metrics for each department, each role, and to drive that alignment. When you don't have that alignment, the likelihood that you're not rolling up into the organizational goals is a lot higher. The last piece here is just poor governance and maintenance of your dashboards over time that can lead to confusion. So if you can set up a rhythm of creating, modifying, and updating these dashboards over time, you'll create a lot less confusion, a lot more clarity as you manage in a dashboard first environment moving forward. At the end of the day, they should be aligning you on strategy, reducing the sprawl, driving the right behaviors across your organization. So many companies have dashboards that they create and they get really excited about it, and then they just start collecting dust because nobody uses them. And they go back to the things they're comfortable with, so they haven't implemented them and trained them fully with their teams. If you can focus that role-based access, that departmental consistency that everybody's moving the same direction on, that really helps to foster accountability and transparency to get your team moving the right direction. I hope that helps you to start evaluate your current dashboarding environment, what's helpful to you, what's not helpful to you, and then help start aligning you on your strategic goals to become a more profitable, growth-oriented business in 2025. Thanks for tuning in to Data Fuel. We hope today's insights help fuel your SMB's growth. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review the podcast so we can keep bringing you more data-driven strategies. Till next time, keep fueling your business with data.